Hey everybody, this is Doug Mark from Learning Zen, and I'm here with 5 franchise questions. My guest today is Walter Bond. Walter Bond is a former NBA player, business coach, and Hall of Fame speaker. Walter, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. This is always fun.
Yeah, well, we had fun because we got to do our due diligence with our research to learn a little bit more about you, but you also have an entire business career outside of your NBA career. Can you tell our audience a little bit about walterbond.com and what you do with your time these days?
Well, you said it in a previous life, I played professional sports until I was 31, and that laid the foundation. I mean, I'm honestly, when you make it to the NBA, there's ups and downs, there's struggles, but you make it, and you learn how to become the best in the world at what you do. The first business I started after my basketball career was a franchise. I became a franchisee and I failed. It's the only time I've ever failed in my life. There's a lot of reasons that went into that. One, I knew nothing about business. I had no experience, but I felt like I was connected to a brand that wasn't one rail. And I went to one of our national conferences, and it was painfully obvious to me as a franchisee that the franchisor and the system could have cared less about me. And so now I'm on a mission. We work with a ton of franchises around the world to help them as a brand reach their potential, but also really become a voice for franchisees so that they can grow and reach their potential. And franchising is the only thing I ever failed in my life. Now I'm a very popular franchise speaker, and it's just only poetic because I love to fail, but I want to fail forward. And you're not going to catch me failing too often. But when I do, I learn my lesson, and I typically come back with a vengeance. And so to your point, my first business was basketball. And, you make it to the NBA, you got this ego, right? And
Yeah.
so when I failed in business for the first time, it was very humbling. I learned a lot, but now we've come back bigger, stronger, and faster. And not only do we stay in the franchising community, now we've pretty much become a household name as keynotes and training and development.
Well, that's amazing. And I personally couldn't ask for a better segue into my next question, but I should give it a little bit of background context as well. My team started basically our first full team meeting of 2021 was today. And we started our meeting by everyone on my team watching your shark video. That 10-minute video it really resonated with me. It was extremely powerful to the point where I wanted everyone on my team to hear it. And it kind of changed our marching orders. And to be honest with you, it motivated me in a way that I didn't necessarily know was possible. So first and foremost, thank you for that. So in that shark video, a couple of things really resonated with me, but you talk about the Bond family business. And I think your father really helped motivate you and hold you accountable to the goals that you had set for yourself. Do you feel like this model would also benefit the franchisor-franchisee relationship?
Absolutely. And when I talk about the Bond family business, it really was training and development.
Yeah.
And, my parents were teachers. My dad was a high school principal. My mom was a teacher. And I'm the youngest. And I flunked out of my first high school. So I needed a little extra training and a whole lot more development. But when you're raised by teachers, they have a whole different approach. They understand potential. They understand being patient. They understand equipping. And I was always a great athlete. But I remember my dad telling me, like, this family produces student athletes. It's not good enough for you just to be an athlete. And keep in mind, I was named after my uncle, his brother, who played Major League Baseball. And I'm the best athlete in the family. So my father knew that I had incredible potential to play pro sports, but I was failing academically, and that was unacceptable because that was unacceptable to the culture. So when you have a family, you got to have a culture where you build confidence and set expectations. And so when I talk about training and development, that's what I'm talking about. Build confidence and set expectations. And when I think about a franchise, that's your job, to build confidence and set expectations, but then supply the culture that can help your franchisees reach their potential. And it's too much to explain today in our interview, but for the most part, smart companies are training and development organizations at their core. If you look at any great franchise system, McDonald's, that's a training and development organization. Chick-fil-A, that's a training and development organization. So what we do and what we bring is training and development. Our biggest client right now is Jersey Mike Subs. Peter Cancro, the founder, we just had breakfast. And he said, look, man, I got more work for you. He's already used me for 25 keynotes. I got more work for you because he understands training and development and helping his people reach their potential. And that's what great franchise systems do.
Man, that warms my heart for a lot of different reasons. But I always talk about the fact that I think an investment in training and development for your employees is better than any marketing investment you could ever make. So I'm right there.
And a lot of brands don't even go that route. They don't even think that way. And they stay mediocre, right?
Yeah.
So as an athlete, Doug, we went to practice every day. That's training and development, right? You went to training camp for a whole month before you even played a game. Training and development. In fact, you had off-season workouts, training and development. You just don't just show up and just go play. It's constant training, constant development, and then you go play. You play well and compete, and that's the difference to me from an organization that's going to be mediocre. We just go play and play hard. Versus a company that say, hey, we're going to build culture, we're going to train, we're going to develop, and we're going to play. We're going to play hard, but we're going to play the Chick-fil-A way. We're going to play the Jersey Mike's way. You fill in the name of your franchise, and the question is, if you haven't invested in training and development, you probably don't even have a way. And the only way you can win in franchising is to have a clear way that everyone understands.
Well said. That's something that just resonates with the work that we do every single day. And so I don't always necessarily expect to get an answer that is right in line with what we do. And so you never fail to surprise me, Walter. So that's awesome. You're a guy that's traveled a ton in your lifetime, and I know you're not traveling right now, or maybe you are, but not nearly as much as we used to. But I know when I traveled around the world, I have certain brands that I resonate towards for one reason or another. Are there some franchise brands that you're out on the road that you will seek out? Can you tell us who they are?
You know, at this point in the game, you know, the good news is that they seek us out. You know, I just had a conversation this morning with the brand. But I want to work with brands that want to grow. You know, I want to work with brands that want to get better. You know, I don't have any interest in working with a brand that just wants to stay status quo or just do enough to get by. The worst thing I hate is a brand where the leader says, Walter, you know, my people need to hear your message. Come in and talk to my people. Well, can I talk to you first, right? Because you know you're the leader, right? You're the head of this. It's bigger than me just talking to your people. And so we've been able to build some amazing relationships with Jersey Mike Subs, Denny's. There's all kind of other brands out here that we work with through the past. But franchisees, let me tell you something. I'm a former franchisee, so I get it. I get it. They have invested a whole lot of money and their future into your brand. The least you can do is support them. The least you can do is give them training and development. And here's why. When we were in high school, we learned about the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And one of those needs is self-actualization, which simply means I believe I can reach my potential here. So if you have a brand, if you're not convincing your franchisees that they can reach their potential with you, shame on you. And now you wonder why you have associations, and now you wonder why you have lawsuits, and now you wonder why you have disgruntled franchisees, because you have not done your job. Your job is to make sure that each and every franchisee, the moment they sign that franchise agreement, I don't care if it's one location, I don't care if it's 30 locations, it doesn't matter. You got to create an environment where they can reach their potential with you. That's why I chose University of Minnesota on a basketball scholarship, because my college coach recruited me and convinced me as a high school kid that you can come and play for me and you can reach your potential with me. You don't need to go to the University of Wisconsin or Michigan. You come and play for me because I'm going to help you reach your potential. So when I walk into the NBA and I make it, Doug, I look back at them And all I say is thank you. You taught me how to dribble at an NBA level. You taught me how to shoot at an NBA level. You helped transform my body into an NBA athlete. Thank you. I chose Minnesota and it worked. Think about your brand the same way. You know what? These franchisees have options, right? We can go online and do searches. What brand do I want to buy? And they say yes to you. You need to take that personal and say, you know what? My job is to help you reach your potential as a franchisee. If that's not your heart, if that's not your focus, you're in left field. And you just can't be happy with the franchise fee and the franchise agreement. Some brands are just happy with that. Oh, we closed some deals, man. We closed 5 deals today. We closed 30 deals. We opened up 30 new restaurants this year, but you're not supporting them and they're not thriving. Wow. You're not just selling a brand, you're selling a successful business. And it's your job to keep training and developing them until they're exemplifying what a successful business is. And if you can create that model within your brand, that's when selling franchises and locations are easier. And my biggest litmus test is your current people buying more locations.
Right.
Is your growth coming internal or external? Because if your growth is not coming internal, something is flawed with your system.
Well,
you can transform this overnight by simply understanding that we need to turn our culture into a training and development organization masquerading in our core business so that all of our franchisees can reach their potential here.
You might have noticed that I'm taking notes as we go, because you said a lot of things that resonate with me. And I think I absorb so much that I often forget to ask the good follow-up questions. But what you just said really resonated with that sense that, franchisors have this opportunity to invest in these franchisees. If you sign up a franchisee and your expectation is that they're just going to be successful all on their own because they bought our brand, you're a lunatic. You have to invest in those franchisees. And sometimes we hear pushback, where people don't truly understand that the rule of like a joint employer. They feel like, oh my God, as a franchisor, I'm afraid to, talk to my franchisees because I don't want to break that arrangement. But joint employer allows the franchisor to train the franchisee and their manager. And that's a huge thing. So if you're not doing those things, those franchisees are all being set up for failure. If you're not investing in the success of each and every one of those people that bought into your brand, man, I don't think they stand much of a chance on their own.
Well, here's the difference. You can be a system, and I'm talking to franchisors right now. You can be known as a giver or as a taker. And smart brands have a culture of giving and not taking. And I'll give you an example. When my wife and I bought the brand that we bought into, it was literally my basketball savings. Almost every dime I made as a pro athlete, we invested into a franchise because this is our life after sports. And we struggled. And I remember going to our annual conference, and the CEO at the time talked about what he was going to take away. And it hurt me so bad. I mean, I literally kind of got into a little bit of a verbal confrontation. I'll never forget the brand we bought. We were going to be able to market through their stores. And the CEO goes, hey, you guys aren't going to be able to put your flyers on our counter because we don't want our counter cluttered. And I was, excuse me? You got people here running lines of credits on their home, and all you care about is a cluttered counter? You got people who spend their life savings to buy into your brand, cash in 401ks, and all you care about is a cluttered counter. Now, the whole time, my wife is kicking me under the table, like, Walter, settle down. But the reality for me was like, this dude could care less about us. And once I realized that, I wasn't angry. I was hurt that, man, we just spent our life savings of a lifetime of pursuing the MBA into a brand that just confirmed they could care less about our success because their cluttered counter was more important than helping us be successful. The only reason we bought into the brand is because we could market our programs through their stores. And it really sent us a message that, wow, like this is the reality of some brands. So now as a coach and a consultant, we're able to come in and not only impact the franchisee, but also impact the franchisor. You know, I'm not just coming in here to help your kids. I'm coming here to help you to understand how to get your franchisees to be committed and loyal and to buy into the brand. It's not about what you're going to take away. It's about what you're going to give. Because the truth is, if you can sell more locations and get your, you know, your royalty, you're better off anyway. So why not sow into your people, train them, develop them? And here's the key, Doug, and here's the key. And Peter Kinkrow and I, we just had this breakfast last week, and he gets it. In sports, you're in great shape when you can see someone abs, right? When your abs, when you got that six pack, that's when you know someone's in shape. Don't tell me you're in shape and you got a big old beer belly, right? And so the analogy is, if you're really going to have a culture that's a strong culture, your middle managers are your abs, not your corporate office, not your corporate team, not your regional director, you know, not your area directors, not even your franchisees, that manager, right? That 18-year-old kid, that 21-year-old kid, that junior college student that came in to work part-time who just needed some money. Until you capture them, until you get that middle manager tight with the brand, the culture, the way, you have not built a strong culture. You have not built a strong brand. And that's what McDonald's did with Hamburger University. They take their managers through Hamburger University and they train and develop their managers into the next generation of leaders. Their current chief diversity officer started at McDonald's when he was 16. He walked in off the street at 16. Mom said, boy, go get a job. I'm tired of looking at you, right? Like most teenage kids. We just stumble into these locations and brands because mom made us go get a job. He had no idea what he stumbled into. He stumbled into a training and development company at 16 years old. Now he's chief development officer. Honestly, if you build the right brand, if you attract the right people, you should never have to hire from the outside. You should promote from within constantly, because Bill Belichick, a great football coach, has produced several other head coaches. Why? Because of the culture. He's running a training and development organization masquerading as a football team. And not only is he producing great quarterbacks and great football players, he has a low payroll and he's producing other head coaches. That's the power of training and development. He doesn't have to go out and outspend everybody. He gets good players and he develops them into great players. That's the metaphor for franchising. You find some good people, you develop them into great people, and that's how you build a great brand.
I mean, you said it from the start of this conversation, which is, you know, the best way to grow a franchise is from within. And if the easiest way for us to sell a franchise is via a referral from a franchisee, then man, I've got to be developing training and leadership into those leaders at the franchisee level, because someone reaching out to them or that franchisee reaching out to someone else is going to be the easiest sales job in the world compared to bringing in somebody who doesn't know anything about your brand and doesn't know anything about the support they're getting from up top.
You know, here's a metaphor, and I'm going to use a sports one first, and then we're going to talk business. You know, Tom Brady is going to leave the game, arguably, as the greatest quarterback of all time. But don't forget, he was a 6th-round pick. So think about that. A 6th-round pick transformed into the greatest quarterback of all time. I pay attention to that because I flunked out of my first high school. Now I'm a best-selling author. Now I'm a thought leader. Now I'm writing training programs and coaching programs and modules. Think about it. I flunked out of my first high school. Now I'm a thought leader. How? Training and development, right? In basketball. I didn't start in college. I came off the bench. But I made it to the Dallas Mavericks and I started my rookie year for the Dallas Mavericks. How? Training and development. Smart companies. If you
as an undrafted free agent, right? An undrafted, right?
Undrafted free agent. And here's the truth. Most high schools, for example, are loaded with C students. Think about that. Your largest demographic of any school is a C student. If you go into a company, if you sit down with the HR director, they're going to tell you the same thing, right? Most of our franchisees fall into the C category. In fact, most of our employees fall into the C category. It's always the biggest demographic. It's not about LeBron James that's going to win the championship. What are the other guys doing?
Yeah.
Right? Because for years, the superstar, they kind of cancel each other out the way you win a championship. What are the other guys doing? If I can get my other guys to outplay the team's other non-superstars, that's how you win. The same thing is true in business. We always focus on the superstars instead of realizing, wait a minute, they showed up good.
Right.
What can I do with my average performers? If you can move the needle from your C students, imagine every C student becoming a solid B student. Imagine every C franchisee becoming a B franchisee. Just imagine that.
Imagine.
That's where your biggest, I call it the movable middle. That's where you got the most meat on your bone. We do a lot in financial services, and I always challenge them. They always have these incentive trips for their top financial advisors, their top insurance agents. And they take them to Cancun and Bermuda and Maui. And I always ask them, what do you do for your C students? My college roommate is a top financial advisor with UBS. I asked him that question. Man, I'm always going to these resorts. That's what he told me. I said, well, what do they do for their C students? I said, what do you mean? What do you guys do for your financial advisors who aren't rocking it like you? And he was like, good point, man. Nothing. Always get calls to go to lunch and dinner, because the other franchisees on their own reach out to him. But internally, his firm does nothing for the C advisor. I'm like, hello. That's where the most of every high school, every company, every community, the largest demographic is your C student, just average.
Yeah.
Training and development is the key to moving that needle from average to above average.
And it brings me back to what you were saying earlier when you talked about, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks. You were talking to Ken and I before the interview started, and I won't, overshare any part of that interview that we discussed in private. But one thing that was clear was, 30 days before the season started, you all were practicing, and then the season starts. But what happens between games? More practice, right? Like, you're constantly getting coached. It's not like we coach you one time and say, the Dallas Mavericks, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to be this team for the rest of the year. You finish the game, and then the next day you go back to coaching.
And there's a bunch of timeouts in the game.
Yeah, with coaching going on all throughout that game. That's a huge point. I forgot.
There's a bunch of huddles, right?
Yeah.
In your off season, we have a whole business model called the off season, a business recalibration. It's really a strategic planning model called the off season. And my whole philosophy is like, wait a minute, my off seasons were sacred for me. That's where I transformed.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I lost 10 pounds, gained 10 pounds, or whatever the case was. But in business, who takes an off season in business?
No one.
Off season. So we've coined the phrase off season, the business recalibration. And to your point, Douglas, in sports, you're constantly practicing. You're constantly huddling up. And I'll give you an extreme example. I played for the Utah Jazz and a guy named Jerry Sloan. God rest his soul. The fourth winningest coach of all time in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
Only had one lottery pick. Okay? Imagine that. The fourth winningest coach of all time in the NBA, only one lottery pick. And when we had training camp, watch this, we never scrimmaged. Now, I'm trying to make the team, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, my God, we do everything but play basketball. All we did were drills. And I go to Jerry Sloan, and I said, Jerry, I'm trying to make a team, but we don't play basketball here. All we do are drills. And since we don't scrimmage, I feel like I can't show you what I can do. I feel like I can't show you what I can do. This is what he said to me, Douglas. Walter, I already know what you can do. But if you want to make my team, I suggest you listen, follow directions, and execute. If you listen, if you follow directions, if you execute, in other words, if you learn and show me that you can play the Utah Jazz way, then you'll make my team. I'm not interested in what you can do. I want to see if you can buy in and execute our way of how we play basketball. And that's what McDonald's has, their way.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A has their way. Because here's the truth. We all have our own individual value systems. So when I show up at Chick-fil-A, when I show up at Jersey Mike's, when I show up at Denny's, I'm walking through that door with my own individual value system. And if you don't have your own individual value system, I'm going to keep executing mine. Until you convince me of another way, mine has worked just fine. So Jerry Sloan taught me, like, Walter, you got to figure out how we play basketball. And let's see if you can fit in on how we play basketball. I already know you can play basketball, but I'm not sure if you can play the Utah Jazz way.
Yeah.
You realize how much that impacted my training and development company?
Yeah. I'm sure at least at that point, you knew exactly what you had to do to make that team.
That's right. And most companies that we deal with don't even have a way.
Yeah.
They don't even have core values. And if you don't invest in training and development, you'll never have employees that are going to be congruent, cohesive, and loyal and committed. You're going to have a lot of turnover. You're going to have a lot of turmoil, and you're going to always underperform. And we've seen in sports and in business, the New England Patriots, the Utah Jazz never had the highest payroll.
Yeah.
Always had a moderate payroll, somewhere there into the middle bottom, which lets me know if I invest in training and development, I would save a whole lot of money hiring people who I need to come in and be my savior.
You're going to develop
And
that from
pro
within.
teams are trying to draft a savior.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, no, we're going to develop saviors. And we're going to develop a culture that's built on training and development and people willing to execute our way. And that's what a lot of business leaders don't get. And that's what we come in and do. We transform franchise cultures so that they can win and win big. And my final thought on this whole tangent, that smart companies are training and development organizations at their core.
I'm writing that one down because that's a great little soundbite right there. And
that's mine. Don't steal it. Give me credit.
You got it. That's all yours. And the story is wonderful. And it's interesting. You brought up, Jerry Sloan. My next question was just going to be actually, you played for some really great coaches. I mean, I could be wrong, but Don Nelson, is that right?
No, I didn't play for Don Nelson. No, I wish I would have, but I didn't. No.
I thought that first year in Dallas for some reason, but Doug Collins?
No.
Well,
I played for
our research team is terrible.
Yeah.
Me.
They were coaches there, but not in my era. When I played in Dallas, my coach is Richie Adebato. He got fired, and a guy named Garfield Hurd took over. When I played for the Utah Jazz, that was Jerry Sloan. And man, was he not only a great coach, he had a great staff.
Yeah.
The assistant coach Phil Johnson, Gordon Chiesa. They had a culture, man. And Sloan, he was a man's man. He was a leader of men, and he had great assistant coaches. Even my college coach was great, Clem Haskins. He had great assistant coaches in Silas McKinney, Al Brown, and the assistant coaches. Man, people always give the head coach too much credit and too much blame. The assistant coaches of great coaches are great. I'm going to say that again.
Yep.
The assistant coaches of great coaches are great assistant coaches, which means not only does the founder CEO need to be great and kind of get training and development, he needs to hire the right people that also understand the importance of culture building and what people respond to. My wife and I have been able to build a business where we're experts in human capital. And I'll give you an example. We're traveling with Jersey Mike's, and they were putting their annual meeting together. And Peter let me see the agenda. Yep. And he said, "What did you think?" And I asked him a simple question. I said, "Peter, you guys had a good year?" He said, "Yeah, we had a great year." I said, "Well, you played high school football?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "When you had a great season, what's the first thing you did?" Celebrate. He ripped it up. And,
I love it.
You got to celebrate, especially if you're driving people, especially if you have a hardworking, fast charging culture, people need to celebrate just to know we did it, guys. We set goals for 2021. We hit them. Let's just take a little time to celebrate the victory. Let's pop the champagne, right? Let's have the Super Bowl parade, right? We're gonna let this last for a moment and enjoy it. But then after a while, hey guys,
time to get back to work. Yeah, recognition and celebration, I think, are things that we've actually been talking about internally and with our leadership team, but it's something that you need to have be a part of your company culture. Recognition and celebration are a big part, because when we put in all of these work and we do the right things, we've got to celebrate those wins along the way, and people can't forget about that too.
We do. We absolutely do. And your people need it. It's a part of really, seeing sports, every season is its own entity, and no one season bleeds into the next.
Yep.
Which I love, because when that season shuts down, we all enter the off season and we all get a chance to start over.
Yeah.
I think the same thing should be true in business. Whatever happened in 2020 has nothing to do with 2021. Good, bad, or ugly. You got to take each year as its own separate entity. And that's what you do in sports, and that's the way we live and train our business leaders to do in business.
Well, and what I love about that too is, part of what we do in the off season is self-development. So throughout the year, our organization is investing in us. But part of what we do on the off season is some self-development. Is that fair and true? Do you kind of see it that way as well?
Well, the way we do it, everything's on the table, because we work with clients. I had one business leader call me and says, "Walter, I want you to coach me. And it's not about making money. I make tons of money, but I'm on my third wife and all my kids hate me." Right? So to me, in the off season, everything's on the table. Sometimes it could be about your physical health. Sometimes it could be about your mental health. Sometimes it could be about balance or improving technology. To me, I'll give you another example. I've been in the franchise world for so long. I know that sometimes emerging brands struggle to get past 100 units or whatever that benchmark is. I had one franchisor tell me, he says, "Man, I don't know what it is, but when franchises get to 100 locations, something happens." And a lot of brands kind of start dying at 100 units. And here's why. You got to transform into a corporate business and not this mom and pop kind of entrepreneurial. I had a good idea. Let me go half bake a concept and sell some some franchise rights. And then 100 in, you don't have the infrastructure built, and you can't do anything past 100. So off season could be anything, honestly, but it's all about getting to that next level. And whatever your next level is, let's get it worked on in the off season. I've had teammates in the off season, they went to drug rehab.
Yeah. Ooh, self-development. Yeah. It comes in a lot of different forms and shapes. Yes, you're right. Some people are going to spend an off season working on their mental health or their physical health or their environment and whatever they think they need, so that when it comes back to next season, I can give you in this team everything I have.
It could be a brand refresh. There's a million different things that it could be, buying another brand. We have a lot of successful brands, and they get a lot of franchisees that have multiple locations. A lot of the bigger brands, they want to buy another brand to keep their top franchisees happy, where they can have, almost like a business that complements their core business, if you will. So everyone has something to work on in the off season. And we take business leaders through an off season. We should do something for franchisees. We can work with you. Maybe we can do something for franchisors, but the off season concept is for everybody. Yeah. And it's really about that next level growth. Like, what does the next level look like?
So Walter, almost all professionals, I feel like, have coaches. even Michael Jordan, right, had coaches. What's the benefit of coaching for a professional, somebody who feels like they've reached the pinnacle?
Well, right now, and it was beginning in my NBA career, but it's commonplace now. Um, NBA players have a whole organization that supports them, right? They will have a stretching coach. And that stretching coach, their job is to come in there and make sure that you're stretched out.
Yeah.
Then you might have a physical therapist. And then you might have a psychologist. You might have a nutritionist. Some NBA ball players have a cook. I've heard that LeBron James spends $1 million a year just on his body. And that makes sense because if he's making $40 million a year from the Lakers, and then all of his endorsements, to spend $1 million a year on his body to get another season in the NBA at a high level, that's nothing to invest in him and his development. But that's a mindset. That's a mentality. I had a personal trainer when I played in the NBA. I needed a guy that could work me out to a point beyond what I could do on my own.
Yeah.
To play at the NBA level, you have to be in amazing shape. And most of us don't have the ability on our own to push ourselves and do the right exercises without hurting ourselves for maximum growth. You need like a educated, licensed professional to help you reach your potential with what you eat, how you work out, how you lift. And it's a whole community that agents, pro athletes have a whole team that supports them.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think that's something that we're realizing now, that when we reach a certain point, it doesn't mean that we stop developing and investing in ourselves. And your explanation of what LeBron's doing really resonated with me, because it's the same thing that franchisors can be doing. They can be investing in their franchisees, just like, LeBron is investing in his body between his physical trainers and probably a team of masseuses and stretchers, and he's got a lot to protect and a lot to work for.
Doug, here's my final comment, and I want to speak to every franchisor so that they get it. The truth is, when a franchisee signs that contract, every morning we wake up, and I'm speaking as a former franchisee, I have this question in my mind. Does my franchisor care about my success? It's like this incessant insecurity.
Yeah.
Does my franchisor care about my success, me? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to be happy with the brand.
Yep.
If I'm not sure, I'm going to be a little uneven about the brand. But if I can say, man, my franchisor cares about my success and I know it, you got some franchisees that are ready to go out and build an amazing brand. You have franchisees that are ready to run through a wall for you. I mean, when I do a keynote, basically a large part of my keynote is honoring people who helped me develop. I talk about my high school principal, who's also my dad. I talk about my college basketball coach. I talk about all these key people that helped me reach my potential and become me. I wrote a best-selling book, Swim. I talk about Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for Your Soul. He mentored me. In 5 minutes, he said, son, you got a book? This is like Who Moved My Cheese Good, but it's got to be a parable. It was a 5-minute conversation, and we traded emails. And in 5 minutes, Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for Your Soul, convinced me that I got to write a parable. So now, a year and a half later, we got a bestseller. People are like, man, how'd you do it? Mentors who coached me, and I didn't overthink it. I just did what my mentors told me to do. And alongside some natural ability and natural talent, we were able to do it. And so coaching and mentoring is so important. And as a franchisee, you got to be coachable, right?
Yeah, coachable.
You got to be coachable. But, that's the key, training and development. And any franchise that invests in training and development, they won't lose. They will win, and they will win big.
Well, Walter, we unfortunately have reached the end of our time. I have at least 10 more questions for you. I actually plan to ask you about what it feels like to do a jab step and hit a 2, over Jordan, because I've seen that video. You're like one of the very few people who can actually explain that feeling to me. That's going to have to happen on the next interview.
Well, we got to do part 2. We got to
do part 2. But you need to go. But over on walterbond.com, You mentioned the formula. Before we wrap up, can you tell people on this call how to get in touch with you and why they should want to learn more about the formula?
That's the best way. WalterBond.com.
Okay.
We provide training for franchise systems. We do coaching for franchisees. I've keynoted so many franchise groups, annual conference, I can't even count anymore. Typically, the keynote is a hello. That's a hello to the brand. But WalterBond.com, that's what we do. We're committed to it. And we understand franchising. We work with all size brands. And if you want us to work with your brand and help you with some training and development, let us know. That's what we do. But WalterBond.com is the best place to reach us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I met Walter at an IFA conference. Very approachable, very easy to talk to. Don't hesitate. Contact him. I guarantee he can help your brand. Thanks for coming on today, Walter, and sharing your stories. Your inspirational video. If you don't have, if anybody on the call right now watching this recording wants to see a great motivational speech, go to YouTube, search Walter Bond Shark, and you will find
Shark Mindset. Absolutely.
Shark Mindset, and you're going to get part 1 and part 2. But you can thank me later, and don't thank me. Thank Walter. Thank you for coming on, Walter Bond. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug.